Hi, and welcome back to my channel. This is Marla, and I'm so glad that you're joining me today. I am super excited about this card because I have a special place in my heart for jewel tones in the fall. I love traditional reds, orange, and browns, but boy, jewel tones really have a special place in my heart. They're just so beautiful and vibrant. We're going to pair these Catherine Pooler inks with some new products from CottageCutz. I have the Harvest Foliage die, which I've cut out using accent opaque cardstock. I have some of the leaves in a pile there. And then you can see I have the pieces for the swing that I cut from the fall branch with swing. The Catherine Pooler inks I'm using are Cranberry Fizz, Flame, Orange Peel, Sauna, Ginger, Dress Blues, Juniper Mist, Glam, Martini, and then I'll use a little bit of buttercream. I have my Tim Holtz mat there. That comes from the glass mat. I have a small mini glass mat that I don't use here. I use it in my other home. We're going to do one of my favorite techniques that I share all the time, and that's ink smushing. This is a funny faux pas right here. So I have a dry piece of accent opaque cardstock. You see that leaf? I added a lot of the Glam to my mat, and then I used my finger to break it up because I didn't want any of those harsh edges. I actually used too much of the ink. But right here, I couldn't remember, did I put the Glam down or did I put the sangria? And I re-put the Glam back down. So I am ink smushing into the same color that I've already ink smushed, and I'm thinking, Guy, I'm not getting much variation in color, duh, because you didn't use the sangria. So I am going to have a happy accident right here, and I decided to add a little bit of the cranberry. And when that cranberry mixed with that beautiful plum from the Glam, look at the beautiful pink that I was able to get. Just slightly lighter than a magenta, but boy, was it so pretty. Happy accident. I'll use that combination again. We want a little bit of orange red, so we started with the lighter orange, which was the orange peel, and then I added flame, which is a red orange, and a little bit of the cranberry. Now I'm going to dry these leaves because I want to see how much that color is going to sink into the paper and dry back. I wanted a little more vibrancy on my orange flowers, so I'm going to add a little bit more of the cranberry. On one of them, I'll add a little bit of the orange peel, and then of course I'm going to tap it into the flame as well, and that's going to give me that beautiful deep red orange combination, and I think that those are beautiful. I'm trying to add as many jewel tones as I possibly can, so having the blues and then this vibrant green right here, such a pretty color, this Martini. They are, you know, more muted than your summer colors would be, but it makes it perfect for a really bright fall card, yet still sticking with those themes. So I started with that Martini. I started with the Sauna, which was the yellow. I dipped it into the Martini, and then I added a little bit of orange peel. And I have this final leaf right here. I will bring in another one later on, but for now I have this final one, and I'm going for it. I'm starting with the flame, which was that red orange, and then I went into the purple, and I thought, you know what, what's going to happen if I add some blue? So I'm going to add a little bit of that Juniper Mist, and we are going to add that blue into this leaf, and I really liked the color combination. I'm adding a little bit more of that Glam, which is that beautiful plum color, and the plum and the blue and that little touch of orange really tied everything together. I have one more leaf here, I think. I thought that was the final one, but I do have one more, and I'm going to do the greens and the blues. So this time I'm adding a little bit of, I believe it's more Juniper Mist on there, and I'm dipping it into the Martini. I am adding the Juniper Mist. That is not going to be dark enough for me. The Juniper Mist is kind of like faded jeans. I want more of a navy on there to mix with that Juniper Mist, so I'll add a little bit of that dress blue onto the mat to get a little bit more depth, a little bit more of that navy blue, and I like that much better. What I love about ink smushing is that I can layer so many different colors together, and then by smushing it I also get the texture. So ink blending, I love ink blending backgrounds, but when I am working with these beautiful foliage pieces and flowers, I don't know, there's just something about smushing that just makes me super happy. I have the bottom of the swing, so this is going to be the seat of the swing, and I added a little bit of the ground espresso over top of it, very lightly, and then I just blended in a little bit of the gathered twigs. I have these really small blending brushes, and I'm using them to ink the edges of this swing and then to lightly apply the color. So I'm adding that ground espresso around the sides. And then my antique linen, I can't find my refill, so I just pulled out this buttercream. Again, Catherine Pooler ink. It's that beautiful vanilla that you would picture a vanilla cupcake to be. So I'm just adding that vanilla as the base color. I'll add that gathered twigs very lightly, so I'm brushing just ever so lightly. This is the rope of the swing, so it does have texture on it, which is what's grabbing that ink when I'm lightly running those colors across. Once I finish with this, I'm going to again go around the edges with that ground espresso. I'll do it to both pieces, and then I'm going to bring in another die set here in just a moment. I wanted a pumpkin, and then I wanted something to sit on my swing. I first thought that maybe I would use the pumpkin on the swing, but then I saw that sweet little bird up on top. I'm going to use that bird and that pumpkin for my card today. I didn't use the hat on the bird, but boy, is that adorable. So I started out by smushing this into some ginger ink, which is a brown red, and then I had already created those leaves up top. Those two colors are orange peel and ginger. I wanted my pumpkin to have a different tone of orange, so I just tapped it into a little bit of that Sauna, and I'll put it up quickly. I did have to speed this up for the sake of time, but I did see, just so you can see that it really is a little bit different than those leaves are, and I think that it just kind of separates the two pieces. You would never see a pumpkin the same color as a leaf. Everything has such a variety of tones that, all oranges aren't the same. So for the pumpkin, there is a little stem. I went around the edges of my pumpkin with that ground espresso, and I'm adding it to the stem. Now I'm going to go over the edges of these orange leaves because they are, I believe, oak leaves. They would have a little bit of a brown tone in them. I'm adding it to the top very sparingly, but just trying again to add more variety. My bird I knew was going to be brown, and so I wanted to make sure that I just got a touch of those browns in my leaves, which is going to, my favorite word, make everything really cohesive on my card. We're going to add that stem. I just have a little bit of glue, and I use my jewel picker. Again, we're back to the buttercream and our small little blending brush. These brushes give me really good control, so I'm going to add that buttercream to the chest and the center of the face of my bird. This bird does face forward, so the body is to the side, and then its head is turned so it's facing straight forward. We're going to add some brown tones, as I mentioned, using gathered twigs and that blending brush. I'm going to go under the neck, over the top of the head, and then down the side where the feathers are. There's a second layer. You can see that wing right there next to the ink pad. I am going to use the ground espresso. So we want a couple different colors on this bird. We don't want it to be just one tone. Obviously you could do that, but I like to have more dimension, and I think by just blending in different tones it really brings these die cuts to life. I left it a little bit lighter at the top of the wing so that the wing is not just that solid espresso, ground espresso, and I was very light-handed. I want that wing to have a little bit of dimension, so I'm going to use these little round circle foam pieces that I have, and I'm going to add it to the wing, and then I'll add the wing to the bird. And next I'm going to add a little bit of detail to the tail feather. So I am going to use ground espresso and the side of this little brush, and I'm just going to add little lines in between each of those indentation areas where the tail feather is, and I think that that adds a little bit more dimension. I colored the feet with the ground espresso, and I'm adding those. And then I needed to color up the beak, so I'm using that Sauna. Again, we are just repeating some of the colors that we already have. For the eyes, I believe there are die cut pieces for that, but I didn't use them. I just used my Copic outliner pen, and I went ahead and just drew in the eyes using that multi-liner pen. I'm going to glue the beak on, and then I'm going to bring in a jewel, not a jewel, I'm going to bring in a white gel pen. With the gel pen, I'm going to add the eyes. So I'm going to add the irises to the eyes. And I think that that little bit of detail just adds more expression to the bird. We're going to add a little bit of whimsy. So I'm going to be heavy-handed with my gel pen, adding dots and lines, not only to the tail feather and the side feather of the wing of the bird, but also to the top of the head and the beak. I'll do the same with the leaves. I'm only going to show you the oak leaf right here. I'll just do one of them. I'm going to add some little dots, and then on the other leaves I added, some of them had dots, some of them had lines. And I think that I don't know, I just think that the gel pen adds not only some highlights to it and brightens up the details on the leaves, but it also adds that whimsical look. So I thought the bird had quite a whimsical feel to it, and I wanted to add that to my card. I have some vanilla cardstock, and then I have this Tim Holtz embossing folder. I think it was released last year. It's called Foliage. I'm going to use the front side, which is the dark side of the embossing folder. This is a 3D embossing folder, if I didn't already say that. We're going to add that Juniper Mist to the background. Now, I don't think you need to add as much ink as I did, but I wanted to make sure that I had really good coverage. So I'm just tapping this along this front side, and then I'll take my vanilla cardstock that's been cut to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. I'll spritz the back of it, and then I'm going to add it to the back side, and I'll flip over the top and run it through my die cutting machine. And isn't that beautiful? Oh my goodness, I thought the vanilla cardstock with that Juniper Mist was just a beautiful combination together. More again with the muted tones. I'll trim this panel down to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and then I used my Spellbinders Arches dies, and I die cut an arch again from the vanilla cardstock. We need to ground our scene, and so I'm going to use that Martini ink to add some grass. I'll use the Dress Blues ink to add the sky. I'm going to be very heavy-handed around the outside edge of the arch, and then as I move towards the center, I want to create kind of like a highlight, so I will be very light-handed. Now I'm trying not to get any ink onto that grass. I fail. I do end up getting a little bit of that ink. It was on my thumb. I hit my thumb with the brush, and then I touched the bottom of it. So I want to camouflage that, and we are going to start by adding some water to this. Now, this is something I typically do anyway, so I'm just going to clap some water over the top. I'll use my microfiber cloth and lift up some of that ink. I'm going to dry it, and then I'll add a little bit more of that Martini, and you'll see how it's really going to change and add more texture to the bottom area where the grass is. I'll go over it one more time with some water. I'll dry the panel, and then I really like the way that this just has a little bit more interest because we do have that embossing folder. We wanted to add, or I wanted to add a little bit more texture to just kind of blend in that arch. We're going to build our swing, and I'm just using some art glitter glue. I've turned over the swing. There are, to the bottom of that swing, you can see there's little knots that were included in with this die. There's 2 that go at the top, 2 that go at the bottom. The top ones are going to be covered, so I wasn't worried about adding those, but I did add them upside down. So I'm going to put the first one on the wrong way, and then I'm going to realize this doesn't look right, and so I will flip it over, and then what do I do on the other side? I put it on the same way, upside down. I don't know sometimes when I'm crafting where my mind is at, but I just fix the one on the left, and then I put the one on the right the wrong way. Anyway, so here it is. It's upside down. We want the little tails to be facing towards the ground, and I'm like looking at this going, doesn't look right. So I flip it around, and I like that much better. And then watch. I'll get it with my reverse tweezers, and same way. I'll flip that around, and then I'm going to place it where I think I want it, and we're going to bring in our sentiment. I do have a sentiment. It's no longer available. It came from Paper Tray ink, so it's been retired. It's very, very old, but it has a beautiful script. I really like the script. And it says, "You are a blessing to me." So I am going to place it at the bottom where the grass is. I am going to, again, incorporate some of that purple, and I'm going to add the ink, the Glam ink, to my sentiment. And you'll see just how pretty this little sentiment is. Again, I want to add a little bit more purple. We have a lot of the blue and the green, so to add that purple, I used a Spellbinders piece of cardstock. I am wrong. Actually, it is Stampin' Up, and it's called Rich Razzleberry. My card base is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches, so I am going to have that 1/4 inch reveal. I did add some foam tape. I don't know, I must have cut that part out by accident, but I did add some foam tape to the embossed background, and I placed that in the center. I got it a little bit wonky, but it wasn't enough for me to tear it off and do another background. I just went ahead and left it. I cut off the tail of the swing, the area that I wasn't going to need, and now we're going to start building a little swag. I love swags. It's one of the things that I love so much about florals and foliage is I love the way that you can just create different styles of swags with this, sometimes from the bottom, sometimes going straight across your card. This one I'm going to just kind of mimic the arch. And once I get this purple leaf in, I do off camera spend quite a bit of time trying to figure out what order I want the rest of my foliage in. I wanted to disperse the colors. I wanted, I didn't want 2 of the purples together, trying to keep some of the oranges apart from some of the other oranges. So I just did that off camera. I'm going to build the right side of this, and then I'll mimic it on the left. Now, the die pieces are actually going in the same direction. They aren't mirrored, so I am it's going to look just slightly different. I mean, other than me pointing it out, I don't think that a recipient is going to really notice, but it is going to be slightly different because of the angles of the dies being on the left and the right side, but I think that I got it pretty even. And once I get everything tucked in, I did add a little bit of foam tape to my pumpkin because I want that pumpkin. It's going to go at the very top in the center. Again, adding a little touch of fall to the card. So this, even though we do have the bright, vibrant colors, we do have the changing leaves, we do have the pumpkin, which is representative of fall. So this really is a beautiful jewel toned fall card, even though we are not using the traditional orange, brown, and red. So I get that in. We're going to glue our bird to the swing. It's going to be swinging on that sweet little swing. And once I get that pumpkin on, that's going to complete my card. I will have a link to all the products that I used in the description box below. If you haven't seen the CottageCutz fall release, I'm telling you, it is amazing. It is one of my favorite releases from CottageCutz. I love all the different elements that are there. So check it out. Here's a close-up of the card. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Thanks so much for joining me.